when you think that you lost. Oh, I will take your hand and we'll rise up from the dust. Oh, here we go, 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 let us heal and grow. You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're going for. This is what we know. Here we come back to life, we're still breathing. Standing up, everybody's gonna see it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on.
My name is Mike Feeney, and I am here with Kara. Hi, Kara.
Hey, Mike. Hi, everyone.
And Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Mike. Hello.
And we are going to be talking about trauma in this little series of videos that we have. And in our last video, we talked about what trauma is. If you haven't watched that video, please look for it on our channel and check it out. It gives a nice little discussion into the different perspectives that you can look through when you're discussing this subject. But when it comes to trauma, everyone talks about, okay, you need to recognize it and you need to address it. But why do you need to address it? So today, we're going to be talking about why it's important to address it and the real benefit to doing so. You know, for a lot of you out there, you might not want to address it because it's a very scary thing. I always compare it to, I don't know if you've ever watched like a movie from the 80s. I'm a child of the 80s, so this happened in a lot of 80s movies where it was like an adventure movie, and in the beginning of the movie, they would somehow like open up a door, and there were like snakes behind the door, and they quickly closed the door. But throughout the remainder of the movie, you always knew that the snakes were behind the door. And I feel like that's kind of what happens with trauma, where we know something's behind that door and we just don't want to open it up. You know, but the reality is at the end of those movies, the snakes would always come out and like get everybody. And that's kind of what trauma does if you don't address it. Kind of comes out like that. So I think it's really important that we address it. So I'd love to hear from the two of you. What are your thoughts on why we should address?
Yeah, I think that we should address it because to me, it's like not talking about it, not saying it, not recognizing it is oppressive, for lack of a better word. I know I've used that word a lot lately, but it really is. So I think that's the biggest reason for me. I feel like just saying it and talking about it brings it to life. It's so easy to like bury stuff. We don't even like understand why like we react how we react, right? Like I may be in a car where someone's tone is like icky and maybe like that's just their tone of voice, right? But I'm really sensitive to people's tones. And so if I don't recognize that and work with that, I'm going to be bothered by virtually like anything. I mean, and that to me, I think it can just keep getting bigger too, can start there. And then, if I get an argument with somebody, I mean, I could just completely shut down, so I think I think it's vital on so many levels.
Jen, yeah, I like where you said you can completely shut down, because I think it brings up the point that how it affects your relationships. Like trauma, it not only affects you yourself and the way you experience the world, but also how you relate to others and how much access you have for each other. And it also really, in the same way that invalidating your own trauma by not thinking it's significant enough, cuts you off from that experience, like of understanding yourself a little better, and then shutting down also, it cuts you off, and it cuts the person you're involved with in that moment off from getting to know you better or sharing in that experience with you. So there's a lot of ways that trauma can just sort of end the experience, like in yourself. You can shut down. I don't want to look at this. And also, so that's very limiting. It can shut down these precious moments for other people to get in, to understand you, and for you to be able to share yourself in that way. So like, I like to think of why we do this work as, and I love this. I think it's like, it's a chance to just like discover the mystery of who you truly are, which I think is really underneath layers and layers of programming or trauma or experience that hasn't been looked at or worked at. So there's this sort of story of who you are in this moment, and then there's the story of who you are following the work, the work that you release and work through that trauma. So I think we show up very differently, like we've said in multiple videos. But yeah, anyone else? Mike, do you have a question? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to pretend that I'm watching this video right now with the two of you, and I'm not on it. And let's just say I'm a person who's been through a lot, but I'm thinking, look, I can just compartmentalize, and I don't want people to know, those parts of myself.
Right.
What would you say to me?
Well, I think that like it just really blocks your ability to get to know yourself. Like Kara was saying, it and it also again with what Kara was saying, it blocks your ability to have deep relationships. If you can't get to those parts of yourself, nobody else is going to be able to get to know them and get there either. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I say that because there's some people I think that might be watching that think, I don't want to go there, and I don't even want others to even see that part of myself. And I absolutely agree with you that, if you're watching this and you're thinking like, what I was saying before, I think both of you are saying the same thing in that there's a great opportunity to learn about yourself, to become the best person you can be, to connect with others in a way that brings you so much joy. And that's one of the reasons it's important to address the trauma. But it can feel extremely scary, to address. It can feel really, really scary. So that's a very, very normal thing. But for those of you that are out there, I just want to let you know that I was just challenging Jen and Kara because we're trying to help you out here. And there are a lot of people who really think they just can't.
Mike, I think that's important, and I think there's a piece of like an active choice to not face a part of yourself, and then there's the sort of very. I'm so sorry, I tried to do not disturb, but it keeps. Yeah, and then there's this sort of unconscious choice to compartmentalize, because I can speak to my own experience of that. Is like I didn't realize that I was an unintegrated being, that I had like these parts of myself that I kept to myself or even away from myself. Like there's some things that I'm not even aware of, and I think that sometimes they can really catch us by surprise. And I just want to point out that that's where the opportunity is, just when you see this part of yourself that maybe comes out where you find yourself fearful, you find yourself acting out in some anger. It's like, hey, be curious with that. If you feel like you want to do the self work, if you're watching these videos, I'm assuming you're here to do the work. You're here to understand more about yourself. So just be curious. That's I would just suggest like, wow, that was really ugly. I didn't like that. Where the hell did that come from? Like what part of myself reacted and responded to this experience in this way? And maybe I do have a trauma with this that I wasn't aware of. And so I think there's the unconscious choice to compartmentalize. And then there's the part where it's like, I'm just a private person, and there's personal boundaries, and that makes sense too. But I like what you said about compartmentalizing and lack of integration, because I think what healing really is, like working with trauma and healing, is sort of integrating, bringing in, processing, working with the parts of ourselves that are so fractured and divided. And I think that is the cause of trauma. Like we put it places, obviously at 5, 6, 7, 13 years old, we can't deal with that. So maybe that's a natural thing that I think occurs. So just to say that.
I have a term that I want to share with the two of you and the viewers out there. PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. And most people know what that means. If you don't know, I encourage you to look it up. It's basically the disorder that you sometimes deal with from trauma. But I've heard a new term called PTSG, which is post-traumatic stress growth. And it points to the growth opportunity that you're talking about when we address these things. So for those of you that are out there, I just want to share this, that it's not just about relationships. It's not just about, even feeling better, but it's about growing your potential in life. And I can say this from personal experience. I've, over the past few years, have had to address trauma, and it's been intense. I mean, this morning I was going through some stuff, and it was like, geez, I'm stuck in bed dealing with some painful memories in my body, in my spirit, realizing I had to record this video today too, and thinking, how the heck am I going to do this? But the thing that I was able to do that I wasn't able to do in the past was to actually sit with those feelings and work with them, which we're going to be talking about in an upcoming video. And I think it's really important to know that when you start to address it, and I'm just going to say this loudly and clearly, I don't care how difficult it feels right now or impossible, there's so much gold on the other side of it. So much gold, and there's gold that you can't see right now. There's gold that you can't understand right now. But I encourage you to, if you're watching this and considering going there, to just blindly trust us, even though we're just on video here. Blindly trust us because we care about you, and we've all been doing some deep work in this and can tell you there is gold on the other side. And if you're watching, I'd like to ask you to comment below and let us know what is the one benefit you see of addressing your own trauma. And this is a tough one to answer, and I understand that many of you just might not want to even share that kind of stuff on the internet, but I challenge you to put it out there. What's a benefit to addressing your own trauma for you? And if you put it out there, I guarantee that that's going to be on your mind and going to help motivate you to go forward. So with that, we're going to wrap up here. Thank you both for such just an insightful conversation. I just want to say personally, I love the both of you, and grateful that we have these conversations, and grateful that we can share this stuff on video and just talk about it, and explore it together. And to the viewers watching, thank you so much. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to our channel. We have lots of videos coming out, and we're excited to share them with you and to help you with difficult emotions. And thank you all for being here today. Think about, again, one more time, trauma in your life and why you can benefit from addressing it. I want you to just keep that on your mind for today. Think about that. I promise to think about it too. Be well, everyone. Take care and have a great day.